Soul's Conquest. Hello, Conquerors, and welcome to the latest episode of the Soul's Conquest, the Ego Trap. Now, this is a very informative episode, something that is extremely important every time you start a new journey or you're trying to change something in your life. You will experience this at some level or another. Now, the ego trap is a very fun thing. We have spoken about the ego, we have spoken about how fear affects our change, how to be flexible with change. We have spoken a lot around change, but I wanted to speak in particular about the ego trap. Now, the ego is not this big bad villainous thing that is always trying to kind of harm us. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Quite the opposite. It's like this defense mechanism that prevents us from doing anything that might harm us. And a lot of that involves with preventing us from trying something new or joining a journey that might change us, going into the unknown basically, because you have no idea how things are going to go in this particular situation with you in particular. So the ego is like, hey man, don't do that. What if something happens, right? And oftentimes, as sad as it is to acknowledge, we listen to our fears. We don't try to, like, think about, oh, okay, maybe I can change this, maybe I can go about this, I can still go about it. So I wanted to kind of bring awareness into the ego trap and how it functions basically. So the very first thing the ego does to trap us is to make sure that we understand that it is on our team. So it will be extremely diplomatic about this, right? Like, you'll almost believe that it is our intuition that is speaking, right? Because our intuition is this hush kind of a voice that's just talking to us or warning us or whatever it is. The intuition is a gut feeling, right? But what the ego tries to do is almost resemble that. And it's like, hey, I'm on your team and I know that you want to change, but here's why you shouldn't. And it lists off a bunch of reasons that you shouldn't try to do this. And you're like, oh, okay, I hear you, but let me think about this a bit more, right? Let me look into this a bit more, because this journey is impactful for me. It's something that I've been planning on doing for a pretty long time, so let me lean into that a bit more. The next thing that happens is when the ego recognizes the fact that you're not listening to it, you're not paying attention to it, you're ignoring the signs or the PowerPoint presentation that it has created for you to kind of not change. The ego tries to get, it starts to get irritated, it starts to get irked and angry, and it's like, oh, this girl is not listening to me, or this person is not listening to me. So this is the point where a lot of what ifs come into existence in your mind. Like, you feel this disconnect basically. There is this weird mindset around your work. You're trying to do something, you're trying to change, but there is this disconnect. You're angry and you are irritated, and there are a lot of what ifs playing on in your mind. What if this happens, what if that happens? And these are like the basic level of fears, right? Like, it's not something that is extremely huge or extremely, life threatening kind of a thing, but it is still something that might, kind of stop us in our tracks and make us go like, oh, okay, maybe I should think about this a bit more, like, maybe. um and it is during this point of time when you start to actually listen to what the ego is trying to tell you, right? Like, don't change, don't change, don't change. But let's say you still go on. Let's say you're still like, hey, let me just work through these fears, let me just, you know think about the origin of where these fears are coming from, and let me just work through them and let them go, because I am really excited to go on this journey. This is when the ego gets really annoying, right? Like, it's like, oh my god, how many times should I tell this person, and why is this person not listening to me? So what is the ego does is it brings forth the irrational fears. It opens that trunk deep inside our head filled with irrational fears, and this is the point where we start to overthink, right? Because some aspect of the what if stuck in our mind, and now we start to build up on that story, we start to overthink that. And this is something that you must have seen, right? Like, I'll give you an example of how this functioned for me. When I started coaching, I was like, yeah, this is it, right? Like, this is the thing. And when I was like, hey, I should do coaching, this is something amazing, the ego was like, But you are in I'm on your team, but you have been in marketing for so long, you have done so much around hotel management, um and you keep changing. People are not going to like that. People are not going to acknowledge the fact that you're changing so much. They might think that you are someone who constantly changes their mind. um and I was like, yeah, but this is something that's calling to me right now, and I want to work on that. So the ego then went ahead with the what ifs, right? Like they were like, what if coaching is very hard? What if you can't do it? What if you can't help this particular person? um and I was like, okay, so let me learn more about it, right? Like, let me learn a bit more about coaching. Let me ask for help from as many people as I can, and let me practice this with someone. Let me hop on calls with my friends. Let me try this with a lot of people so that I can get a better understanding of coaching and how that experience goes. And obviously during this part I evolved a lot as a coach. I went from trying to control the situation to trying to be present, which is important as a coach. Like, you are not leading the journey, or you are not, like, marking down the road. You're basically helping the talent or the coachee move on that path, and you're just holding their hands and guiding them on that journey by asking them the important questions in life. So as I did this, this was when the ego was like, oh my god, this girl is not listening to me. So, anyways, this is when the irrational fears come into play, right? Like, this is when my mind started, or my ego started to bring forth the irrational thoughts of the what if. Like, I was like, it originated from the what if you can't help your client, and it became what if you could help your client, and you change their life and they start to live their life and it's amazing. But they do something that um, helps them be themselves, but that irks some other person, and they try to harm this particular person because they were trying to live their life. And what if it all the entire blame of it all falls on your shoulders, because you are the person who helped this person grow, you were the person who helped this person evolve and change and be the better person. But what if being a better person is not something that's right for them? And I was like, oh shit, I didn't think about that, right? Like, oh my god, what if I do that? What if that happens? I can't live with the thought that something can happen to someone just because I help them be a better person. And oh god, this was something that plagued me for literally months. I kid you not. This irrational fear plagued me for months, and I almost considered dropping coaching because I was like, I can't deal with this kind of stress. I can't deal with this um, notion of hurting someone in unintentionally, right? And it was at this point of time when I was going through a training for coaches that I realized that this is not about me. This entire journey of being a coach and help and coaching someone, it's not about me. It's about the coach, it's about the talent. It's literally not about me. And this was the time that helped me kind of like move out of the ego trap and actually start doing what I love doing and see the results and the after results of what I was helping people achieve. And this was when it was like, oh, okay, why was I even afraid? That was such an irrational fear. But that's how the ego functions. That's how the ego traps you into being safe. I did not work for like 3 months because I was so scared of doing something that might hurt someone else. Right? Like, I was so weirded out by this. But that's how the ego traps you. And the best way to overcome this, the reason why I'm sharing the way the ego traps you, is basically to help you be more aware of the process, be more aware of the journey. You can try to do this, okay? Just start this as an experiment. Try to change something small yet impactful about your life, and see, you have a basic idea of how the ego traps you. It will try to be diplomatic, like it's on your team. Then it will try to give you excuses about the anger and irritation and just the negativity around your life. A lot of what if situations will come into place. After that, you will experience the irrational fears, the scary things in life. You will start to kind of overthink a lot. So when you start the small process of changing something in your life, when you notice these things happening, you can then recognize how the ego functions within you, and how it prevents you from doing things in your life. You can also look back at your life and look at how this might have happened in the past every time you try to change. It's a really good exercise, and the next time you try to change something, once you're in the awareness of it, you can actually catch it, and you can prevent yourself from going down the journey that prevents you from doing the thing that you're being called to do. um, and not just worry about it, right? So I hope this resonated. If it did, please leave a comment below, please leave a review, and share this with as many people as possible. Let's go, let's go beat the ego and do something that we were called to do. I'll see you soon. Bye.